Hi guys, I'm no fan of Rupert Lowe. I despise the individual. But he gave his old friend Nigel Farage a pretty good roasting here when he appeared on Newsnight. It must be remembered that Lowe is pretty much an unknown offline, but he received a massive boost to his online profile when he was supported by Elon Musk some months back. Lowe and Farage parted ways on less than friendly terms, and it looks like Rupert is determined to get his own back. Here he issued a warning to anyone hoping to see Nigel Farage in number 10. Have a listen.
What do you now think of Nigel Farage?
Look, I don't dislike Nigel. I think he's running a cult.
You described him as a coward and a viper yesterday.
I think he is. I don't think he's fit to be leader. I don't think he is a leader. I think he's ultimately a very good, what I would call ballroom entertainer. You know, he stands up and he entertains, and he's extremely good at that.
You said in your statement yesterday, for the good of our country, Nigel Farage must never be Prime Minister.
That is my opinion.
For the good of our country?
I think the way he's behaved towards me, if you gave him the power of the British state behind him, he has demonstrated that he is not fit to be wielding that power, and I don't think he should be Prime Minister. That is my opinion. And I'm perfectly entitled to my own opinion, and I'm sorry, but that's my view. I would have helped Nigel become Prime Minister, but I don't want to be next to Nigel, as I said in my interview in the Mail, if we haven't got a plan, policy, a structure, a shadow cabinet, and we're going to deliver for the people. Because I don't want to raise people's hopes for change and then dash them like Boris did.
You have described in this interview reform as a cult a number of times. They would say, don't be ridiculous. People are democratically electing us, and that's what they did a few Thursdays ago in mayoral elections, local elections, and that by-election in Runcorn.
I don't think people had a practical alternative but to vote for reform in those elections.
So they're democratically elected.
If you wanted change, you had to vote for reform. But what I think has to happen is we have to find an alternative for people to vote for something different that is more professional, that will deliver for the British people, and that will deliver the change that this country needs if it's to reform itself.
Interesting. Very interesting comments here. So I'm going to give Rupert Lowe the benefit of the doubt here, because I don't know all the ins and outs of why he left. You know, we have to take his word for it. But let's say for the sake of argument, he's telling the truth. It does point to an idea, and we've seen the same with Ben Habib. He left Reform UK as well. I think there are people within Reform that actually want to turn it into a real party. And there's somebody standing in the way of that, Nigel Farage. So I think Lee Anderson, Richard Tice, and some of the other people who've come along, they're happy with Nigel Farage running it like a company. He's the president, he's the CEO, he makes all the decisions, he decides who's hired, who's fired, and that's it. It's a cult of personality, a bit like MAGA in the US. And I think there are people, and people who have left Reform, who wanted to see it run like a normal political party, where there would be a shadow cabinet, as Rupert Lowe pointed out here, and the leader could be changed if the party decided that it was going in the wrong direction. See, we saw it with the Brexit Party, and we saw it more with UKIP. Farage saw that there were people within UKIP who wanted the party to go in a different direction, and he didn't want to be dragged along with it, so he left. But this time round, he's decided, no, it's my way or the highway. And people like Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib have decided, well, the highway is the only way for me. Because they understand that if you want to have a real political party, it needs to change. You can't have this cult of personality. You can't have this dictatorship within Reform. And that's why they've left. And this is what I think they want to do. I think they want to form their own alternative to Reform, but they don't have the backing at the moment. They don't have the money. They don't have the clout. But they could become a bit of a thorn in the side of Nigel Farage. The more interviews Rupert Lowe does, the more traction he gets in the media, this can create problems for Nigel Farage, because Rupert Lowe can say, well, look, Nigel is saying he's going to do X. Well, we will go even further to the right. Nigel Farage is selling out Britain. Nigel Farage would be a terrible Prime Minister. He would be a terrible Prime Minister, but what Rupert Lowe is selling is even more extreme. And you're going to start to see some people not too happy with reform, those who see that the party will have to move to the centre if they want to win over ex-Tories. And they're going to feel betrayed. And who will be standing on the sidelines welcoming them into their party? Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib, or a combination of the two. So he's right about Nigel Farage. It is a cult. And if it doesn't reform itself, no pun intended, it will crash and burn, because you can't run a political party like a company. You can't run it with a cult of personality. It worked to a certain extent with Boris Johnson, but he was running an actual political party, not a company.